In Civilization 5, there's a fun achievement called the Magellan Achievement for successfully navigating across the globe. But who is Magellan, and why is his achievement so special? Well, our story begins in the Indies. It was a huge, booming trade region for incredibly profitable resources, such as cotton, indigo, and spices. Now, Portugal decided to develop a trade route sailing east and around Africa, while Spain funded Christopher Columbus to sail west. Now, in 1492, this led to the discovery of America. But then in 1994, the Treaty of Tordesillas was signed. This was done to prevent Spain and Portugal from going to war over the new lands discovered in America. Now, the treaty gave everything east of what is now Brazil to Portugal and everything west of it to Spain, which is, by the way, explains the cultural differences between Brazil and the rest of South America. But the treaty also gave sole trade access routes to the Portuguese sailing eastward around Africa. Now, obviously, Spain wanted access to these new trade routes in the West Indies, which meant two options. One, break the treaty, which was put in place by the Pope, which is a huge no-no for Catholic kings. Or, risk war with the Portuguese, which also would have spelled disaster for Spain, which left option 2. Find a trade route by sailing west. Now, here's where Magellan enters the frame. He's a famed Portuguese sailor and naval commander. He was hired by the Spanish king to lead this expedition, which was to be funded mostly by the Spanish crown, and partly funded by Christopher de Haro, who was a merchant, who provided a quarter of the funds and goods. Now, Magellan was given 5 ships with a total crew of 270, where he set sail, and nothing went wrong ever. I kid, it went pretty poorly. Leaving port, the Portuguese Navy was sent to stop Magellan right as he set sail, but Magellan managed to lose them in the open sea and sailed to South America, where he managed to sail right around the coast of Brazil, since that was Portuguese territory and he wanted to avoid the Portuguese at all costs. He continued to sail southeast, looking for a strait to go straight to the Indies. However, winter was coming, and so he temporarily had a settlement that was made on the coast. And during this time, 3 of the 5 captains of the ships mutinied. One of the captains of the mutineers was killed in a raid, and the others had their ankle cables cut during the night and caused their ships to drift towards Magellan's ships, who was much better armed, and the mutineers promptly surrendered. Now, many of the crew was needed, so they were spared. But for the few unlucky, they were either left marooned on the coast to starve to death, or they were drawn and quartered, which means they were cut into 4 pieces, and then impaled on the shores. Their bones were later found years later by explorer Francis Drake. Quite a horrific end. Now, a strait had finally been found cutting through the tip of South America, and 4 of the 5 ships successfully sailed across. The 5th was sunk in a sudden storm, but all of the crew were rescued, thankfully. On March 16th, Magellan became the first European to reach the Philippine archipelago, with only 150 crew. Many had died of scurvy, which is quite a horrendous disease caused by a lack of vitamin C. Now, Magellan came into contact with a friendly Filipinian tribe where the chief and his wife converted to Christianity and were promptly baptized and given images of the Holy Child and a cross, which is now referred to as Magellan's Cross, and you can go see it in the Philippines. And it symbolizes the Christianization of the Philippines. Now, the chief Magellan befriended, who was named Raja Humabon, I probably butchered that name, convinced Magellan to kill his enemy, Lapu-Lapu, who refused to convert. Magellan sailed to Lapu's island, with a small force in an attempt to kill him, but Magellan was stabbed with a bamboo spear and then killed with other weapons, that is quoted. This was a huge morale blow to the expedition, and here's a quote from one soldier had to say on Magellan's death. This is what caused the captain to fall face downward, when immediately they rushed upon him with iron and bamboo spears, and with their cutlasses they killed our mirror, our light, our comfort, and our true guide. When they wounded him, he turned back many times to see whether we were all in our boats. Thereupon, beholding him dead, we wounded retreated as best we could to the boats, which were already pulling off. Now, this quote says a lot about Magellan. Not only does it say how much he was revered as a captain by the crew and how much they cherished him and how much they respected him, but it also shows how much he cared about his crew, making sure that they were safe. Now, of course, this quote could be exaggerated, but I like to imagine this is what really happened. Afterwards, there was not enough crew to man all 3 ships, and so one was burned at the Philippines, and the last 2 remaining ships, left a week apart from each other, returned to Spain. although the second ship, which left a week apart from the first ship, was then captured by the Portuguese and then sank in a storm shortly afterwards. Really? Really, Portuguese? You had one job? The last remaining ship, Victoria, returned to port with only 18 survivors out of the original 270 who first made the voyage, which took a total of 3 years to make. And while Magellan himself never managed to see the end of his journey, he was the one responsible for being the first European to sail the Pacific, find a strait across South America, and prove how large the globe truly was. And that is a great achievement.